On this episode, we talk with our good friend Caleb Roose about 3 proven ways to build lasting relationships with your kids.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMont and Andy Lehman.
Andy,
Joel,
it's 2024,
season 6.
season 6. Holy Toledo.
Where has the time gone?
Where has the time gone? Andy, of all the things that I want to do to really kick off the new year, being across the table from you is at least in the top 3.
It's been way too long, Joel.
Yes,
way too long. You were in California.
Oh,
and
we were away, and you guys did some stuff.
We did some stuff. You did some stuff.
Gosh,
we went into the Sight and Sound Theater in Branson, Missouri, which is amazing.
Branson, Missouri, as I like to call it.
Old person?
Christian Vegas.
It is. It is. But no, I mean, it was cool.
Awesome.
The show, Sight and Sound show, was amazing. So.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, we've been away for a little bit, everyone, and just to be clear, we have missed you. So here we are for season 6, 5 years at this thing, Andy.
Yes.
Where has the time gone?
I don't know.
It's right. We were such young men when this all started, and now we are.
Now some of us are old. You have a birthday Monday, though.
Mm-hmm.
So just the day after this thing comes out.
It's a special one, Andy.
It's the big 3-1. No, not really.
That's nice. 40 years old.
Or you're as young as I like to call it.
Yeah, 40 years young. And we're excited about it, sort of. Only that I think we're going to do something. Jackie asked me what I want to do for my 40th birthday, and I said, I want to spend it with the people that I care about most deeply. So whether you're aware of that or not, you're part of those plans.
That's cool.
Okay, great. Great.
Well, Joel, we do have an amazing guest today, but before we get started, I wanted to let you know that support for this episode comes from Everence Financial, helping members invest in what lasts through financial services with impact. More at everence.com/Michiana. Securities offered through Concourse Financial Group Securities Incorporated, member FINRA, SIPC. Joel,
here we are.
Who's on with us
Okay,
tonight?
so I should preface, because we just confirmed this before the show, this episode specifically, with this guest specifically, has been over 2 years in the making, Andy.
Holy moly.
We started a conversation with our good friend Caleb Roose back in October of 2021. I thought it had only been a year, and then Caleb informed me that he looked back on our email thread and was like, "No, it's been longer than that." And that's how time gets away from us these days. When we, just not a sense of wow, it's been over 2. So first of all, Caleb, welcome to the show. Welcome to Dudes and Dads Podcast. Glad to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, Caleb. Caleb comes to us from in the great state of California, where, as I was sharing before, I've just spent 2 weeks out there for the holidays with fam. It was great. But Caleb, your state messes up all my circadian rhythms. No offense, but I am not quite full back. Right now, I couldn't tell you if I didn't know what time we started recording, I couldn't tell you what time it is right now within 3 hours. I'm a little bit messed up, but hopefully we'll make sense as we're communicating tonight on this show. So, the reason we have Caleb on, Caleb he's first of all, Caleb is near and dear to my heart because he works with young adults. We're going to have him explain all of this. He works with faith communities and young people and helping them transition through this really important chapter of life. And I love all of that. Caleb and I met a few years ago, and this is how we initially got connected. A few years ago, as I was still in the youth and young adult pastor gig. And really got introduced to the work that they're doing, and he's going to tell you all about that. But that's how it started. And from that, I was like, this Caleb guy, he's my kind of dude. I need to talk to him more. And then I started a podcast, Andy.
And so you said, what a better place?
We said, what better place? What better place? So here he is. Caleb, again, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're so grateful for you taking the time. First and foremost, as we'd like to do at every episode, when we're welcoming a guest. We like to get the dad stats, as we call it. So you get to tell us about the special people in your life, your family, how long, if you're married, how long, where you're from, all the good stuff that you want to, whatever you feel is safe to put out on the interwebs and on this podcast. Would love to hear more about you. So take it away.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Joel, and thanks, Andy, for
Yep.
having me. Yeah, and I'm just excited to be in this community of dads. I can't believe it's 6 seasons, and I'm excited to kick this off with both of you. It's season 6. Wow.
Yeah, and who better to start our season with? This is what I also love. Like, this
Right.
all came together. It's starting season 6 with Caleb. It makes total sense. Total sense. So yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, 2 years in making. Yeah, so I am married to my wife, Colleen. We've been married for over 13 years, and we have 3 kids. We go girl, boy. So they're 6, 4, and 1 years old, and life is full with them. It's amazing, challenging, and everything in between. Which I know everybody listening in, you both know that because you know what it is to be a dad.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. I think back to, gosh, our youngest is 7 now, and I go back to that stage that you're talking about right now, where I just had a conversation with a dad who had three kids similar to your age, and it was a rough conversation, I think, because he just asked me, "Does it get better?" That was what he had. And it's like, oh, it just gets different. That's all, you know. But you're still in that stage, Caleb, with the kids where they need a lot from you, right? They need a lot of that personal interaction, right? And that's the in terms of like just helping them do basic stuff. And I will say, Andy got to experience this a little, and because I have Andy as a friend. Really, one of the reasons Andy is my friend is that his kids are he's a couple that are a little bit older than mine. And so he gave me hope for when they started like progressing into their teen years and like gaining that independence, and like there was less hand holding. I said, it is possible. There is a light at the end of this tunnel. And so I will just pass that on to you and say, for whatever light you need at the end of your current tunnel, it's there. It's somewhere. So
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So three young kids, and married and all of that. Because you obviously, it's clear you're a pretty cool guy. Where exactly do you live, Caleb?
Yes, I live near Pasadena, California, which is in Southern California. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. And then, Caleb, what do you do for a job, sir? Because I sort of teased this at the beginning. I'm a big fan. I should just say, I know this sounds super biased. I'm just a big fan of what Caleb does and the organization he works with, because they are immensely helpful. So that's my little plug for any ministry leaders or people who are working with young adults. Like, it's the real deal. But tell us about your work, where you work, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I work at the Fuller Youth Institute, which is a part of Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California. And so the Fuller Youth Institute really focuses on resourcing youth and young adult ministry leaders, as well as associate pastors and senior pastors, but about how do you do faithful ministry with young people. And so my research specifically focuses on ministry with young adults, and kind of like that emerging adulthood age range of 23 to 29, but also dipping down to 18 to 29. And just looking, okay, that's a lot of transition happens in that decade of life, decade plus of life. And like, how can we as people who care about young adults come alongside them? And so, so I manage the research and also manage turning that research into resources for church leaders, but also parents and others who care about young adults.
Yes, very doggone good resources, if I may say. And for those of you that are interested in this stuff, if you've got young adults, if you've got college kids, and you're like, what am I supposed to be doing with these people? How can I make an impact? We'll make links and information available on the show notes over to Fuller Youth Institute, so you can see the good work that they're doing over there and where you can get stuff. We'll want to make that available as well. So, okay, Caleb, here's the one question that I have been thinking about with regard to your work and the work you're doing. Do you feel like, because you're working with you're working with young adults, emerging adults, have you recently thought about like kind of parenting in light of reverse engineering with what you do. So you know the challenges that lie ahead for the 20-something. How has that impacted your own parenting, your own fatherhood journey as you've been leading your family?
Yeah, that's a great question. My kids are they have a ways until they enter that phase of life. But even still, just looking at what it is like to be a young adult today, it's changed so much from previous generations. And so I think it has already shifted, whether consciously or subconsciously, it's definitely shifted the way I think about, okay, what does it mean to prepare my kids eventually for adulthood? So right now, some of them I'm preparing them to use the potty on their own. But if I
bless you.
think ahead, that it's not, they don't really need a script in terms of, okay, after this you do this, and after that you do that, and it's all going to work out. That's not really the way life is. I don't know if it ever was that way, but definitely isn't the way life is now. And so what they need is more the soft skills, the adaptability, the way to learn and pivot and just kind of have that growth mindset. So I'm really hoping to instill that in my kids, just like a love for learning and ability to, when life changes and shifts, like you shift with it. And don't, I think we talked to so many young adults, and this burden, at the Fuller Youth Institute, this burden of, I didn't follow the script I was given. And it's not actually no fault of their own. It's just, the life and the world, it didn't make that script possible. And so what we need is just to set up our kids to be able to adapt along the way, and not just being pushed back and forth with the waves, but more like, you don't have to, there's not one right way to live life.
Yeah. Do you, I hear you kind of using language, really developing, we'll call it grit and perseverance with our kids, that seems to be a value. More and more so, we just had a conversation with our eldest. My eldest son's 14, and we just had a conversation. He got thrown a little bit of a curveball today with some life plans, some things that he's passionate about and cares about. And I was having a conversation with my wife ahead of time, like we were kind of queuing this up, like, hey, are we going to talk to him about this right now? Or are we going to, some information came to us and we're like, we have to share this with him. And, and I had this sense of like, this is sort of the testing ground, the proving ground for developing resilience and adaptability that you're talking about, where he thought things were going to play out this way over the next few months. And now there's going to be a slight change to that. When you're thinking about your work with young adults, and want to encourage parents who have young adult kids or about ready to have young adult kids, where would you stack that whole resilience, grit, adaptability in terms of like, how important is it from what you're seeing in your work? How important is it to instill that within them?
Oh. Very.
Yeah.
Very.
Thought we froze there for a minute. It took him a while to come up with that one.
Yeah.
I was like, do I say anything other than very? And that's the only word that came to mind. Is it's just very important. And I think, having that posture as a parent of being present with them as they process those things, but not trying to solve the problem for them, is so huge. Just knowing, okay, I know somebody has my back, young adult speaking, I know somebody has my back. But I have something within me where I can handle this challenge. And allowing them to know what it feels like to draw on their own internal resources that you've equipped them with, that others in their community have equipped them with. That's just so essential. And they'll ask you when they want guidance and support. But kind of some of us, we all have different parenting styles and personalities, but some of us, we kind of have to just listen more and, advice less.
Yeah. And all of this, really, Caleb, is under the umbrella. I mean, I think the big assumption we're making here is the fact that we have the ability to kind of give this input and this guidance into our kids' lives. It definitely assumes relationship, right? Like that's the thing. And really, without relationship, you don't have. It's kind of like I still feel, and I feel like this with my kids. And Andy, I don't know how you feel. Like there is still this ongoing sense of I have to earn the right, so to speak, to be heard by my kids in certain places. Like I have to because there comes a point when they're younger where it's like, you're going to do this because because I'm the dad, right? And I use those the words that we always said we wouldn't use because I told you so.
Well,
right?
and let me tell you this though, like my oldest just became 18, and so that's even harder now to let that go. And he reminds me almost constantly, hey, I'm 18. I don't have to listen to you. I'm like, yeah, I used to live in my house. But yeah, as they definitely get older, and that's tough, especially when you're just like used to saying, because I said so.
Right. Right. Because now you're drawing on the well of your relationship with him,
right,
for the guidance, right? It isn't so much from a position of authority as it is a position of relationship.
Right.
But Caleb, so and the important thing we want to highlight here and mention is so Caleb at his aspiring work that he's doing, this good work at Good Enough Dads, which, let me just say, beautiful name, perfect, because that's all I want. I just want to be good enough, like it's just like good enough.
And I think we've said that before on the show too. We've said we want to know that we're not screwing our kids up.
Yeah.
And so
Andy and I talk about this perpetual concern that we are doing something drastically terrible that's ruining our children, right? And sometimes you have this sense of, boy, I've really messed up. Can we ever come back from this? And really, the truth is, we just have to. There's an intentional nature to it in a relationship. But Caleb, you recently wrote this. Recently wrote this article on your site over at goodenoughdads.com, which we again will make available in the show notes for everybody that's interested. Definitely encourage you. But his recent article just came out a few days ago, where Caleb, you talk about 3 proven ways to build lasting relationship with your kids, and you won me over immediately because you quote Nate Bargatze, that's all I needed. I was like, this guy knows what's going on, perfect. But really talked about, there's lots of things that we are trying to build with our kids, but at the core, and as we've said here, with the input and the impact that we're trying to make, relationship is important. Walk us through the article. Give us the highlights of kind of the point that you want to make with this and what you want to communicate to dads that are maybe struggling in this area or asking for some help.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for that, Joel. Share. Apparently, we share a love of comedian Nate Bargatze and just that bit that he has about people giving him advice like, they're not going to remember any of these fun things you're doing with them. It's like, what, you just want me to lock them in a room and say, do you remember what happened yesterday? No? Okay. Come back and you remember me. I just, like, it's an amazing bit, but it's really struck a chord with me because I felt like, it's not what our kids remember that's necessarily the most important, because our connection with them, that relationship that we build with them, is actually stronger than memories. Memories fade, but that relationship stays forever. And so, I thought about my research that I've done with the Fuller Youth Institute, as well as on parenting and classes I've taken, kind of just bringing back to the simple things, but the simple things can be hard, right? But doing 3 things: listen to your kids, share with them, and I can expand more of what that means, but also repair. Like when you mess up, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be good enough. But we need to be able to apologize and make amends with our kids.
Yeah. And, as I think with any of us, we come into, and this comes up on the show frequently, we come at this parenting thing with a lot of our own, our parenting frequently reflects in one way or the other, one direction or the other, the parenting that we received, who we saw in our moms and our dads, and how they approached. And in this article, Caleb, so you share you lost your dad about 10 years ago. Tell me about his influence in your life. What you sort of take away in terms of your own parenting journey, like what you've drawn from that. Because I think, those reflections are important too. Like we don't start with a blank page on any of this stuff. We have, whether we recognize it or not, there's definitely some things kind of hardwired in, or I still feel like this to this day. I'm still remembering things that my dad did in a new way now that I'm a father, right? So, I just wonder about that, about your own dad, and kind of as you've reflected on that, what's kind of come to your mind.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. I'll first just say I'm very grateful to have had a really amazing dad. Um, my childhood years are just like great memories with him, playing sports together, games, wrestling, all the fun stuff. When I was 13, he got diagnosed with ALS,
Okay.
Lou Gehrig's
Yeah.
disease, and that really shifted our whole family dynamics, shifted our relationships with my dad. He was still who he was, but this was, kind of giant cannonball just like dropped into our family, and so a lot shifted, and so I feel like I can have the experience of both having, that amazing kind of larger than life hero dad, and seeing just the fragility of life and seeing his humanity. And even at times, I'm so grateful for everything he's done, but times where, he was trying to figure out his own life, and it was harder for him to, necessarily be pouring in as much into each of us.
Sure.
And so I can relate to both like the amazingness of having a really present and engaged dad, and also when a dad is going through something that makes it just harder to have that same exact connection. And yeah, and then since my dad's passed, just giving me, yeah, it's kind of hard to believe, but yeah, this past November was 10 years.
Wow.
And just a lot of time to reflect on just the impact. And I was just thinking about like, I still feel so connected to my dad.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And a lot of it is just like he did listen to me. He did share his life with me, and he was one of those. I felt like even a rare dad where he apologized. When he felt like he did something wrong. It's like those types of things. Like I'm gonna feel connected to him my whole life, even if it's on season what is it 90, and we're
Yeah.
all old
Yeah.
and gray. I'm like
Yeah.
I still feel that connection to my dad, and I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah, I think we would all say as dads, like, that's a great litmus test of when I am gone, what will my kids remember? What will come to the surface? What will they say about me to my grandchildren? What will those, so there's the legacy thing there is always important. Some people, I think some men in particular think about legacy in less helpful ways. They're like, they want to be remembered regardless of what they actually did in life. They want to be remembered in a certain way. It's like, I want to be remembered accurately,
right?
But favorably would be nice. Would be nice too. But I think Caleb's just really, really beautiful. And as you said that, I'm like, gosh, that's a really thing that I want. Like, I want that connection to still be there in a meaningful way, that something about my life is still an active presence after I'm off, have left this earth, and I've, gone on to be with God. Like, that there's been that positive deposit into life. And I just have to imagine that you're part of the good work that you're doing. It just seems to me is probably fueled by that in a significant way, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like it's this combination of what my dad's given me and how much I want to share that with my own kids, and also just a sense of like I've learned and grown so much through being a dad. And I really feel like the sense of calling and purpose around supporting other dads, that there's so much that's so challenging about being a dad that's really present and engaged, but there's also, at least in my experience, nothing that can help you grow into the person that you're meant to be, than leaning into that role and that calling. And so but absolutely I'm fueled by my relationship with my dad. 100%.
So Caleb, you listed three things, and that's where I want to dive into.
Yeah.
And so you said the relationship component. You said first and foremost, listen. Which, boy, oh boy.
Well, I think that's even. I mean, that's hard. I mean, especially when we were talking about before, when they're young, when you're saying things like, because I said so, or whatever it may be, because I'm your dad.
Yeah.
Like for you to listen sometimes, that's really hard. So I guess, yeah, Caleb, tell us about that, and tell us what listen, like how do we listen? How should we listen?
Yeah, great question. I think in so many ways it's like sadly a forgotten skill in our culture about like what does it mean to truly listen? Not listen in order to respond, but like listen in order to understand and even empathize. Like when my kids are just really struggling emotionally, having a meltdown or whatever it is, what does it look like for me as a dad to like and just listen to what they're going through, understanding that there's this amazing quote that being heard is so close to the feeling of being loved, most people can't tell the difference.
Oh, come
That's
on
good.
now.
Yeah.
That'll preach.
Yeah, and it just like that is just like such a weight that one of the simplest, most profound, but yet nevertheless difficult things to do is just simply listen to our kids.
Mhm.
Put down the cell phone, eye contact, and I'm championing the importance of this, and I don't do it 100%, right? Like
Sure.
my mind sometimes wanders, all the things, but I know I'm giving my kids a true gift when I'm just offering that like undivided presence and attention, and just truly listening to them.
Yeah.
And they feel understood, they feel seen.
Absolutely. And I think, my kids, I'm guessing most are this way. I know the teenagers that I worked with for years were this way. They can tell the difference between you listening to understand and you listening as you wait for your turn to speak to them. And sometimes in the in the pace of the day and the whatever, it's like, okay, tell me your thing. Okay, so thank you for sharing. Now I need you to XYZ, right? And when that's happening, when that sort of listening, quote unquote listening, which is not really true listening, is happening in the light of the conversation we're having here, that is not a relationship builder. It's doing the opposite. And I think there's maybe no harder word to hear than Dad, you never listened to me. Like that's hard. I have and I've heard that recently. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard that, but like I have heard something similar to that recently, and that's a hard one. It's probably kind of a gut check of like, okay, what does am I distracted? Like Caleb mentioned, am I distracted by something else, or am I present there? Recognizing and Dad's friends, I hope you hear this. Listeners, I hope you hear this. The way Caleb said it, I think was perfect. It is a gift. Undivided attention, listening intentionally with the purpose to understand is a gift to our kids, and they receive it that way.
One of the things that I liked about the article, Caleb, is you did say, if you want to know that they're loved, listen to them, and then you say, hear their stories, empathize with their pains, no fixing the situation, allowed, even if that it is called for, that can be later. And so those are three things that I really like, because you're giving them 100% undivided. Again, you said, like you said earlier, put the phone down, but those are those things. Like if you're hearing their stories and you can recall details of their stories back to them, they're going to know that you're hearing them. And then again, you may not, it may be a while since you've been a middle school boy or girl if you're a mom or whatever, but if they're coming to you with pains, as a dad, you may not understand that, especially if you're a dad and it's a girl. That's sometimes the hardest to go, because I know how I felt growing up as a boy, but I don't know what it felt like growing up as a girl. And so my daughter has things that she's dealing with that are different than mine, but I can still empathize with her pains. And then again, just listening to it, as a dad, especially when your kids are hurting, you want to try and fix it because you don't like when your family is hurting. But just listen to them and take it in.
And it's the same. And we have overlapping conversations. Caleb, I don't know about you and your wife, but it's also true. Sometimes, like the fix it mode thing is an easy place for us to go in meaningful conversations with those that we love. And sometimes they just want us to listen. And I know that sometimes, like, my wife is notorious for I want you to listen, because it's just like it's an experience for her of externally processing something. And that in of itself will head them in a good and healthy direction, apart from, whatever words that I have to say that may not actually be of any value whatsoever, other than I was just a person there that cared about them, that just to sit there and listen. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about, practical problems can be fixed, right? But if it's an emotional one, what fixing looks like is actually just empathizing. It's just understanding and making somebody feel, a child feel like, oh, you hear me, you understand what I'm going through. And Andy, you mentioned, you might not totally understand like why your kid, your middle school daughter's feeling this way, but you don't actually have to understand why or think it's legitimate that she's feeling that way in order to empathize. All you have to do is go, okay, I recognize what you're feeling, and allow her to correct you if you say the wrong word, like, no, that's not what I'm feeling. And you go to a place where you understand what that feeling feels like, and that's that sharing of, okay, we understand one another. I know what it feels like. I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I know what it feels like to feel rejected. That creates a connection there.
yeah, absolutely. So after we do all this listening work, there's more. There's more to be done, because after listening, you say, important part of this relationship building process is to share. What do we mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think sharing looks like so many different things, but I think one of the key things is just sharing experiences together, right? I mean, some of these things come natural to us as dads, but those opportunities where you're maybe even intentionally creating memories. Memories are great, but creating those experiences together, doing things together, allowing them to share in your life and yours and theirs, whether you like to go camping or share in sports or play board games or whatever it is, just share experiences together. That's going to build your relationship so much, because it's quality time and there's chance for interaction, emotionally, physically, all the different ways when you have those shared experiences.
Yeah, we're as I've shared several times on the show, something that a goal of mine right now is, after each of my kids turn 13, usually the spring or summer after they turn 13, they get to pick a trip that we go on together. It's just the two of us, and I've really been thinking about. I think the challenge for me, like, so my next son, he turns 13 in March, and we're talking about doing a hiking trip out west, and I'm this particular trip will take a lot of preparation. It's gonna for even me physically, like what I have to do to get ready for this is like, it's gonna be a thing. And I have felt this, I have felt this tension and a little bit of anxiety around it, because I want everything to go, like, I want all the details of that experience with him to go well, right? At the same time, I kind of came back to the other day. I was just trying to recenter myself on, like, why am I doing this? What are the purposes? It is to share in the experience together, because that's the thing, realistically, that he will remember, and not whether or not every single hike that we wanted to go on or whatever thing just went exactly as planned, and that we covered this many miles per day or blah, 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 whatever the case might be. But that we set aside what really is sacred time to share together. And so I'm grateful for that, Caleb. Like, that's a helpful reminder just in the sharing part of what actually is making the difference, what is actually making the impact. And sometimes it's not all the details that we think have to be lined up. At least I hope not, because I'm just, I can get trapped in the weeds. I can get into a mentally bad place and trapped in the weeds. Does that make sense? Like, trapped in the weeds on stuff like that. And it's like, gosh, Joel, like, God, got to think about this differently, hopefully.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And you mentioned at the beginning, that this coaching, business that I've started and blog about good enough dads, it really came out of this sense of, I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. And so I kept feeling like I had to focus on like doing everything perfectly as a dad, even though it wasn't fully conscious. I thought, no, I don't feel that way. But really that was driving so much.
Mm.
And then I read book after book, and there's so much research that says you don't have to be a perfect dad. You just need to be good enough. And I really believe that, good enough dads can have great relationships with their kids.
That's great.
And that's, thinking about your planning, right? You don't have to have a perfect trip. Personally, when I look back on different experiences, whether it was with my parents or at camp or whatever it was, when everything went haywire, I mean, those are the stories we tell.
Sure.
Those
Right.
are like the stories that get handed down from generation to generation. It wasn't like how fluffy the pillow was. It was,
Right.
the lightning struck right next to the tent, like whatever it is. But so I just think like just being in it for the relationship, and even communicating, with your son, like what's the meaning of it? Like if you don't just share experiences, but you also talk about like what the experience means.
Yeah.
That just like deepens it and just makes it so much more rich and so much more memorable. And that connection is like, oh, it's not just we like to spend time together, but it means something. Like, you're 13 now. This is something we've done for each of our kids at 13, and this is why. Like that, those types of things just leave a mark.
Well, and I think again, like you said, those little things, even if it doesn't really matter, grand or small, your events, your memories that you're making with them. I can remember several times, and I think I've talked about it on the show before, but like where we would, especially when the kids were younger, it's harder to do now that a lot of mine are older, but when they were younger, like just even going to like Lowe's or Menards and walking around and just making memories together. But but like you said, it can be the big things too, that you go on a trip, and it's crazy because like I remember going one time to Texas to this quote unquote zoo.
Oh yes.
That literally like we pull up and there's what looks like cattle panels holding the tigers back, and it's not.
They have different zoo rules down in Texas, Caleb. I don't know. I've been to the San Diego Zoo, and it was lovely and very well fortified. But Texas,
this is not a zoo. Like it was like someone's backyard, like a 10-acre. It was bad. It was bad.
It's the best story ever.
But my kids, I say that story now because my kids continue even now to this day to talk about it, and it was only the older three that were with me. Our youngest wasn't with us, wasn't born yet, and like they talk about it all the time about this zoo that we went to. But again, memories were made, and that's the important part. I felt scared for my life, but memories were made.
Yeah, and it was like the trip that my eldest son Aaron, we took a trip this past spring. We did. So my eldest son, it's baseball all the way for him, and so we went to spring training out in Arizona, and then I had a hiking trip planned. And well, as it turns out, they had a late season snowfall, and all the hiking trails that we were going to go on were covered in 4 foot of snow, and we couldn't get access and things like that. And I remember in the back of my mind just going, "This thing is falling apart. Like this is not." Because we did try to take one hike and we made it all of like 100 yards, and Aaron's like, "Dad, I don't think we're going to be able to pull this off," because it was like, I mean, he's in snow up to his waist, and he's like, "We can't do a 2-mile hike like this," and I'm like, "No, we cannot." And he, you know what? But to your point, Caleb, I mean, same deal. Like he mentions that now, he laughs about that, and he's like, "It was so funny that it was just such a funny thing," and I'm like, gosh, I'm so glad you remember it that way, because I was like, doggone it, this is a significant portion of what, like, this was like one of the experiences I wanted to go on this hike with him and do, and I don't know, and talk about all the important things of like climb up the mountain and have a life talk about all the important things that you need to know as a young man.
It didn't go how you wanted in your head.
No, not at all.
Right.
And yet it was exactly what it needed to be, in terms of how he remembers it and how he talks about it.
Now, the last thing that you mentioned in this blog about the 3 proven ways to build lasting relationships is repair. And that's hard.
Oh, gosh.
Very, very hard. So can you talk a little bit about what it looks like to repair relationships with your kids?
Yeah, definitely. I think, when we do apologize and make amends with our kids when we repair, we're doing so many different things. One, we are repairing our relationship, right? Relationships are always going to have like some pulling away and some pulling together. We just want more pulling together than pulling away, right? So we're always going to have those moments. But the other thing that we're doing is we're actually modeling for our kids how to do this well, right? So, as we get better at apologizing, just owning it, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, but just saying, yeah, you know what, I messed up. I'm sorry. I understand how you feel. How can I make it right? That allows you just kind of come back together, and it also just demonstrates to our kids that, oh, our relationship is stronger than any mistakes we make, right? That that's one of the things that for me, why the Good Enough Dads, that title, that name for this organization resonated with me, was that as I was learning about parenting and doing all this stuff, there's this one book that talked about that if you're actually focused on being perfect, it's actually detrimental to your child, because you're more focused on your own performance than you are on the relationship. So if you mess up and you're thinking, shoot, did I really mess up? No, actually, you're doing all these mental gymnastics to say, really, it wasn't me. It was they way out of line. Rather than just think, okay, what does our relationship need right now, and how can I bridge any gaps that are there and take ownership of what I did wrong? That's what creates that solid relationship. So that's what comes to mind with that.
Yeah, I'm of course I had to have this conversation tonight because I'm aware of a repair thing that I need to do with at least two of my children right now. And I just think about that as an opportunity. I'm aware, like, that is it's an opportunity that I don't want to miss out on. I don't want to leave something undone there. As I've just sort of been thinking about today, like, I don't want to leave something undone, because then that also teaches them that it's okay. That it's okay to leave that sort of stuff. Like, it's okay to leave those sort of things kind of loose ends and just kind of let them hang out there. Where if I've done something that I'm not proud of, that I've said something or acted in a way that I should not have, and I should be asking for forgiveness, and I don't, that models to them the same thing, right? That it's like, like, people will forget. It'll blow over. In time, people will forget about it. It won't matter as much anymore. And, man, we've been talking about memories and what kids remember and how important those memories are. How impactful they can be in light of relationship, as relationship is feeding into them. And it's like, I don't know. I think I don't want a bad story to be written relationally because I left that sort of thing undone. Because I didn't pursue the repair part. And if we're real honest, I mean, it's kind of like, this is really about our own ego. And, I think it can be hard maybe for some of us as men to be like, oh, I need to go apologize to a child. Like, if we're honest, like, that can seem like, what's, like it.
Well, especially if your pride is there and you still have that whole, like, you need to listen to me because I'm your dad.
Yeah.
Because then that, for you to apologize, that means that you were wrong to begin with.
Right.
And it means that they maybe shouldn't have listened to you because you were wrong.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely, as a parent, can be tough.
Yeah. So it turns out, I mean, fatherhood has this way of, like, humbling you, hopefully. In so many ways. Number one, when you know you messed up. Number two, when you don't have all the resources that you need in order to do it, and then you have to seek help in other ways. So yeah, I think, Caleb, those are three helpful categories. To just sort of keep in the loop in our head, like, at any given time, like, are we doing them well? Are we I don't know, maybe making a little bit of a I don't know, a checklist in our brain ongoing, right? Like, hey, what about listening? What about sharing? What about repairing? Listen, share, repair.
And I like them because they rhyme.
They do. It just rolls. It rolls right off the tongue.
Yes.
Which something tells me, Caleb, that you did it on purpose. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm just gonna say you were strategic in what you were doing there. So well done. Well,
thank you. And I mean, and just to jump on one of the things you just said though about that, how it can be difficult to apologize. I think if we kind of reframe it in our minds as dads about what does it mean to parent, what does it mean to father well, I think one of our primary roles as dads is to model and show for our kids how to be human. And I think that acknowledgement of making mistakes and knowing how to handle that and repairing relationships, like that's saying I'm human, you're human, and we don't need to. As much as as dads, I want to be the super dad, right? Like that's like I want to be that, but at the same time, I have a responsibility to my kids to show them what it is to be human.
Yeah,
and that's a gift as well.
And I think too that goes along well too with the way that you treat your wife. It your kids should see you fight and have disagreements, and also should see you make up and apologize and say that you were wrong, because in the long run, you don't want them to go into a marriage relationship thinking everything is going to always be 100% flowers and roses, because it's not. But you also want to see that you want your kids to see that you deeply love their mom, as well as being able to, this is how, like you said, this is how a real relationship happens. People offend each other, people have disagreements, but it's okay. We can come back and we can apologize and we can work out that relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
So Caleb, we as always are super grateful for these amazing things that you've shared. We're going to make the website and Caleb's contact, whatever Caleb wants to put out on the internet, we'll put out on the internet over the show notes for this episode over at dudesanddads.com. Dudesandadspodcast.com. Again, a little rusty, new year. We'll get back on the horse. But yeah, on the show notes. But before we let Caleb go, as is always the case, he must submit to the rigors of.
And now it's time for the Dudes and Dads pop quiz.
Perfect.
Yes. There we go. I had the audio too low. Again, it's been too long since I've done this.
It's okay. We're gonna get.
We will get it.
We'll get it back on it. Caleb, this is a time where we ask you questions that help get to know you just a little bit better. There's no way you can prepare for this. There's no way you can even begin to anticipate what we are going to ask. But Andy's got some Andy's got the cards. I've got a few new questions in the hopper.
So you? I see how it is. You go away on a trip to California and you come back with new questions.
New questions. It's new. It's improved and it's fresh.
I should have known. Do
you want me to start with my questions?
Go ahead. You start.
Okay, so here's question number 1. Caleb, how many hammers do you have in your home?
2, and also 3 more that are plastic.
Nice.
Oh,
okay,
yeah,
good.
Of course, you got to have those.
Congratulations. Yeah. Yes, I came up with this question today when we're clearing out a storage area, and the number of different sorts of hammers that I came in contact with was alarming. And I was like, how many people? Do people know how many hammers they have in their house? Because I didn't until today.
I thought I did, but every time I go to look for one, I can never find one I'm actually looking for.
Bingo. It's probably in my storage room where I found all the rest of them.
It probably is. All right. If you could send a message to the entire world, what would it say in just 30 seconds?
Oh, gosh, Caleb.
I repeat what I've said before, but you don't have to be a perfect dad to have great relationships with your kids. That relationship you have with your kids is going to make your life better. It's going to make their life better, and you're actually going to make the world better. Good enough dads can change the world.
Oh, come on, Caleb. Caleb, my next question is, if you could become instantly an expert at one thing, what would that one thing be?
That's a tough one. I have so many things floating through my mind right now. I'm just gonna
I know
one.
this is, and I want to give full credit. This is my wife's question. This is she gave this one to me, and I think it's great. So that's why I'm trying it out on you.
Let's see. Every time I'm up hiking in the mountains, I have this, like every time there's like a beautiful view and like there's like a valley going down, I just picture myself hang gliding from that peak
Okay.
down to the valley below. So if I could just be an expert on that, catch me hang gliding.
Expert hang glider. Okay, great.
All right. What is the worst job that you've ever had?
Oh,
And hopefully your ex-boss is not listening.
Well,
yeah,
or maybe they
probably.
are. Maybe they are.
It was a summer job in between a year of college, next year of college, selling timeshares. Yep,
Oh,
that'll do it.
man.
I was at a. I remember this one time I was at a water park and nobody has anything to sign up for anything there. They're just wearing their swimsuits and this person, you try to memorize. You don't ask the same person more than once. If they want to sign up for anything, and this person kept changing her outfit and who she was with, and I asked her like 5 times, and she was ready to beat me up. It was terrible.
Gosh, the moment you said timeshare sales,
So
ugh.
I have a story. So when we were just in Branson, right? And Julie came back after she checked in and said, "Hey, if we go to this thing on Friday, they're going to give us money."
This whole thing.
And we debated, and we finally called them back and said, "We're not going to come to your thing.
Yeah.
No amount of money is worth me listening to your timeshare."
Yeah, I've gotten suckered into one of those things.
I almost did because it was like there's money involved.
Yeah.
But then
they offered a pretty sweet deal.
It was not worth it.
No.
Yeah, and I wasn't one of the actual salespeople. I was just trying to get them to come like spin a wheel.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Like just give them their email. That's how they get you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they get you guys. Let's see.
Don't spin the wheel.
Yeah, don't spin the wheel. Don't do it.
That's good life advice.
In general, stay away from wheels that you should be or should not be spinning. Caleb, if you were to write a book about your life so far, what's the title?
This is also so many things flooding through my mind here about my life so far.
He's so thoughtful, which is what I appreciate.
I'm too thoughtful. Podcasts are like, where did this guy go? He disappeared. I would have to say, don't hold me to this. I might change the title later.
You're allowed. You're allowed.
It's a working title.
Yeah.
From son to father and back again.
Oh, come on. Write it down. And Andy, mute Caleb real quick. Let's see if we can trademark it and
get the domain right now.
Get the domain right now. Wow. Well, that nailed it. Great.
All
Good.
right. My last question, and this is a go-to Dudes and Dads podcast question.
Bingo.
If there was a sandwich named after you, what would be on it?
I would have to say it's tri-tip and arugula and horseradish on a ciabatta bun.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so Caleb, I don't know if you know this or not, but tri-tip is a unique California thing. Are you? It is. It's not.
Do you guys not have cows out there?
We do.
do.
No one talks about tri-tip out here though. But
Really?
last time, so my uncle by marriage, Uncle Tom out in Bakersfield, that dude does a mean tri-tip. I had never had it before, and I'm like, it was magical. So
Right?
I just want you to know the rest of the country, or at least parts of it, is missing out on this tri-tip phenomenon. There's something special going on the West Coast when it comes to tri-tip. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
I had no idea.
Hey, who knew? Caleb, congratulations. You have successfully passed the Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz. Way to go. Way to go. There is no award, but if we had one, we would give it to you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody, as always, like we said, you can head over to dudesanddads.podcast.com to find all the good news about our episodes, every single one of them.
And we're back.
And all that. We're back recording. All of Caleb's goodies will be over there as well, so you can check in on the website, the blogs, the coaching services, all that.
And I'm going to continue to hammer this one in. We do have a voicemail. And
doggone it. Leave a voice message. We love them.
At 574-213-8702.
Make it your New Year's resolution to leave us a voicemail. People, for the love. Come on. Hey, everybody, dudes and dads podcast at gmail.com. You can leave us an email as well.
We like emails,
We
too.
love for show ideas and all that good stuff. Appreciate you. Hey, guys, thanks for being with us. We're looking forward to a great 2024 and season 6. And until next time, we wish you grace
And peace.